talk around the NFL on every channel you put it on. There's another receiver, perhaps wanting to be traded, that of course will be linked to, and the O line is balling. Let's have a podcast. What up, everybody? It's JP Finley. It's Beltway Football. Make sure you're watching us on Monumental Sports Network after these games on the app. The stream's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying it. Joined by the big man as always. What up, Mitchell?
How you doing? I thought Sunday night was a ton of fun on the stream, and love that you guys are all tuning in and watching, whether it's live or on replay. It's been great.
Keep it up, keep it up, and watch the show too. Damn it! We're brought to you by MGM National Harbor. As always, those are our boys. I think not confirmed, but I'm gonna throw something out there. October 14th, Monday Night Football, Bills Jets. I think me and the big man will be. I think it tapped, or maybe in the sports book. We're probably tapped. Come hang out, tentatively, hypothetically, for the lawyers out there. Mitch, the O's lost. I honestly have been dealing with bedtime, so for timestamp guy, it's October 1st at 9:14 p.m. I'm not asking this to cause trouble. Did the Mets win?
The Mets won 8-4.
Wow.
Big,
Wow. All right.
5 run second inning, I think, and all with 2 outs. Pretty nice little dub, and they're halfway there to getting to play Philly. And I know you hate the Mets, but I have a feeling that you hate the Phillies better
Yes.
more.
I will root for, so the other half of that, well, I'm rooting for the Padres. So the other side would be Dodgers Padres or Dodgers whoever
Yeah.
wins that series. I'll be rooting for that. I don't know that I can root for anyone in Mets Bills, but we'll just see how that goes. All right, let's get down to business. I want to start here. Jaden is the talk of the NFL. Everywhere you look, ESPN, NFL Network, McAfee, like Barstool, any of it, they're all talking about Jaden. It is quite funny how a lot of people are like, yeah, I really like Jaden all along. Some people weren't that into it, but I was always into it. Like, okay, dude. I remember all the Drake maniacs out there. But the Commanders are now 3-1. The odds are overwhelming that they'll make the playoffs. Since 2016, now some of that is skewed because it was only when 6 teams made the playoffs. But since 2016, teams that were leading their division after week 4 were like 68% to win the division and 77% to make the playoffs. So a lot can happen. There's a lot of football left. I don't think any of it's been fluky. I think the offense has proven to be fairly legit, especially since the last couple of weeks when they've been able to punch it in the red zone. I think you've seen Jaden's incremental growth and exponential growth, like linear and vertical for Jaden. Their EPA numbers, like the offensive numbers, are through the roof. I don't even like the comps because it's such a small sample. You don't want to get too caught up in like comping something to the '07 Pats and stuff. We said that in the stream after the show, after the game. But here's my question for you. I am not freaked out at all by them getting all this attention, right? There are people that are, and then there's like the hipster set. It's like they can't talk about my team. They weren't talking about us years ago for X years or X games. Not the X games, but like X number of games. I don't care. A lot of people are freaked out. There's some that are pissed off. I think most people are just excited by all the excitement. Where do you land? Where do you think people should land?
Enjoy the spotlight while you have it. Kind of ignore the talking heads that are going to be saying up or down on it. But this revisionist history on Jaden, with people saying that they had him over Caleb Williams, is kind of a joke. All of a sudden, the Commanders roster is better than the Bears roster, and he's in a better situation. None of it makes a whole lot of sense. But at the end of the day, just like 3 years ago when all the talking heads were talking about all the terrible things that were happening in Ashburn, it was just kind of white noise on the outside. All of this stuff that's happening now, to me, stays in that same realm. It's all kind of white noise. I think it's fun when you see, the NFL Twitter handle changing their headline picture to Jaden. NFL Network is tweeting out segments about him and this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, I think what's most important is, Jaden didn't get a big head between Cincinnati and Arizona. I don't expect that anything's going to change between Arizona and Cincy, or Arizona and Cleveland, or as the season goes on. But to me, that's the only worry with all the national news and headlines and talk and all that, is if it starts to affect inside the locker room. And quite frankly, I think that's part of what Dan Quinn has built, in that he's built, he has guys in there that he trusts won't get big heads.
the concern that like, okay, Jaden beat Joe Burrow Monday Night Football, easy letdown spot in Arizona. It didn't happen. I also love what his teammates said, like after he threw the pick. It's not like he started pressing. He was the exact same guy. He's been the exact same guy through all of it. Remember Top Golf? Like how long ago does Top Golf seem? Like he's just the same dude. And I think their roster isn't better. Like the addition of Noah Brown, he's spreading the ball around everywhere. Olamide Zaccheaus was the leading receiver in a Game 4 romp when they put up 42. Olamide Zaccheaus was available to just about any team that wanted him. I think a huge part of it is how they're running the ball, and I think Jaden as a run threat helps a lot. But I think we got to give a lot of credit to this offensive line, how well they're playing. Allegretti seems to be fine. There was that little scare. He took the X-ray. We'll know more Wednesday. And listen, when you see some of these guys on the injury report on Wednesday, that's what happens. Maybe they won't even practice on Wednesday. Friday's what matters for that. It doesn't seem like anybody's going to miss. I think you should be excited. I think it's okay to be excited. And I was talking with our dear friend Danny Frank. I got to take this hoodie off. Sorry. If you're watching on YouTube. And whatever you take of the Ravens game, like if you project out, I think they'll be favored, barring some unforeseen thing. At least just what Vegas thinks. They're favored this week against Cleveland. Probably be dogs against the Ravens. But then it's Panthers, Bears, Giants, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's this
Two
month
of those are at home.
this month of October, they have a chance to make some hay. One of your podcast hosts in our preseason prediction schedule prediction had them at 3-1 after 4 games, but that doesn't mean a whole lot as you move forward. But seriously, in all reality, Cleveland Browns are going to be probably the best test, at least defensively, that they faced so far. They're the best defense. Obviously Myles Garrett health matters a lot. The Browns last week did exactly what the Cardinals did. They went down and scored on their first drive and then couldn't do jack after that
against the Raiders.
Now, the Browns do run the ball a lot, and they run the ball with a lot of success. And that's something that what's that?
Supposed to get Chubb back, but they lost Wyatt Teller, right? I mean,
right. So there's some ups and downs to it.
We're gonna preview that later. We'll give you the
right.
full Browns preview Thursday.
The game against this team isn't good enough to overlook anybody at any point. So the point that we're bringing up about the rest of the month is just as you kind of foresee it. There's some opportunity here for this team to get out to a pretty historical, at least for modern day Commanders world, a pretty historical start. And it's exciting. And a lot of it's predicated on, the offense continuing to do what it does. As much as I love what the defense did last week, I don't expect that that's going to be the regular output for them. And so I think you are going to have Jaden and this offense continue to score a lot of points to win football games. And, that game against the Ravens, I believe somebody told me that CBS protected it, so it can't be flexed to a Sunday night game. So that game's happening at 1:00, and quite frankly, that's the best game on the docket that day, which is crazy considering what the expectations were when the season started.
A note to talk about that. I want to say it's a dude that covers the Ravens for the Sun that reported it officially that NBC Sunday Night Football kind of asked. CBS said hell no, and they can't move it to 4:30 because Fox has the doubleheader, and they've got I think Lions Cowboys in the afternoon slot, so it's a Sunday 1:00 period. I think if times and time zones and letdowns and all that matter, we would have seen it in Arizona. I think if the encouraging defense kind of continues the uptrend there, I don't know if Arizona's just broken, but they did get a better pass rush against a guy who's really mobile. And I do think they covered a lot better. Like there were no coverage gaps or just breakdowns. I mean, ideally you can keep that going, which would make a big difference. I think there is so much to like and to give credit to. It's seriously been a team effort. You got a kicker all of a sudden that's 10 for 10 that hasn't missed anything.
Right.
Their down in distance has been so good, so healthy, but all roads do lead back to Jaden as far as I'm concerned. Like Like I don't know if they win the Bengals game even if a quarterback isn't excellent. Like I think they stay in it, but that Bengals game this past week against Cardinals, he was so good. To me, it's awesome to be excited, but it's Jaden, and it kind of gets me to this Davante Adams stuff. Um, Davante
Real quick, I just want
Adams,
to go back to let me go
yeah,
back to line real quick, just
sure,
because I
yeah. I
think
set you
the
up to talk about the line, and you started talking about Ravens television rights.
yeah. Listen, I playing the Commanders haven't been talked about being flexed into real football games in a long time, so
Sure.
that was kind of a fun thing. But what you said about the
I had a
Bengals and
note. We were going to talk about it.
what you said about the Bengals and Cardinals, I think is an important point because as you look at it, like the O line kind of made that Bengals game possible, and Jaden did a great job of hanging in the pocket and all those different things. Against the Cardinals, Jaden was just so dang good that it almost didn't matter that the O line also played well. What
I think
the
it
two of them
shows in the run game.
it shows in the run game, absolutely. And, I think for people who are, so concerned about it, we talked about it a lot before the season. It's not about the individual talent on the O line, it's about the group as a whole. And I think Cliff is doing an incredible job of calling games that are helping these guys, set up their blocks well. I think Bobby Johnson has done a really good job of getting them to work together, five guys as one. And it's impressive that they're able to continue this rotation at tackle and have it kind of be successful. I think big picture, you want to ultimately have, Brandon Coleman take over. But one of the positive sides of having two successful tackles there is that you have a lot of edge rushers who like to set up their moves as kind of games go on longer. They'll rush to the outside quite, often in the first half. And then the counter to that is they'll fake a rush up out the outside and cut inside. And the fact that they're not getting as many reps against one person means that they're not able to really set up those moves quite as much as they might do. And I think, as weird as it is to talk about it kind of being okay to rotate these guys, as long as they're both playing well, I think they're going to continue doing it. And I don't think they're going to stop, with the Trent Scott eligible linemen, some of the unbalanced looks we've
Shouldn't.
seen where
Right.
they have, center tackle on the opposite side. It's all been successful. And at the moment, you might want to make some changes because all of a sudden you want to start thinking about bigger things. And I think this goes into the Davante Adams conversation pretty well, but I'm not upsetting the apple cart right now. The offense is humming at a pretty historic level, and it's not the expectation isn't that it's going to stay at that level. And if it does, then oh my God, where is this team going? So get to the Davante Adams discussion.
Your point offensively, they are third in points and sixth in yards. Those two numbers correlate pretty well, so it's not fluky. They are first in the NFL in third down conversions. They're perfect on fourth down conversions. They're 15th in red zone percentage. I think if you look at the last two games, that's way higher. This offense is for real. I think Kingsbury deserves a ton of credit. I think if you have like a long term question, I guess like two long term questions I would say is okay, once the league gets enough tape on Jaden, how does that look? Which you're going to ask about every rookie quarterback, right? And then
Right.
Kingsbury in Arizona, they would start hot and then defenses would adjust, and they didn't always adjust that well. But Cliff has talked about his own evolution. Remember, the year they bottomed out in Arizona when he got fired, it was also Kyler got hurt and then like all the video game conversation. So like they were on a steady up trajectory with Cliff, and then they lose their quarterback. Most teams in the NFL, if they lose their quarterback, are kind of screwed. So I don't know those answers. Nobody does. Time will tell, but I'm encouraged by what I think those answers will be. All right, Davante. So
I also real quick. I also
sorry.
think that with Cliff, like I think we're seeing a microcosm of the evolution through the first four games. That's particularly the first game, but also the Giants game was a very conservative play calling plan. You saw the air yards were minimal, lowest in the NFL, and now 2 weeks in a row, and it helps that they've been able to run the ball as well as they have. But 2 weeks in a row, you're starting to see them start expanding downfield. You're starting to see them call stuff for Terry deep. Luke McCaffrey's running deep crossers. Noah Brown is getting into some holes in the defense. I think you're seeing even just within the four games that the team has played so far, how this thing kind of started as a, let's get Jaden comfortable, let's get him moving. And now that he's kind of proven that he can take that on, they're giving him the next step. And I would hope and imagine that in 2 to 4 weeks, we're talking about even the next step, with where this offense can go. And so I think that, there's a lot of things that people can complain about in the history of some of this coaching staff. But at the moment, it's all clicking, and you shouldn't be hiding behind bushes worried about the boogity man coming to scare you.
Not the boogity man.
I know.
I or hell, maybe at Churchill it was the boogity man. I don't know. I do look forward to finding out who of the Drake Maniacs and who of the Cliff can't coach guys, Cliff can't call plays guys will put their left hands up as things progress. All right, now we'll get to Davante. If you watched the receiver show on Netflix, he was pretty clearly unhappy at various points. That quarterback situation has only gotten worse. They ran Derek Carr off, perhaps correctly. I don't know. He went there to play with Carr, but he also went there just for a boatload of cash and apparently to get closer to the West Coast where he's from. I'm out on Davante. You said correctly that the offense is humming, and it is. Davante turns, I think, 32 around Christmas time. Yeah, he's a Christmas Eve baby. He hasn't been super. I'm not. Davante Adams is a star player. Okay, I don't want to act like every team can always use star players. Every party you go to can always use good looking women. It's like some of this is facts of life, right? But they're saying they want at least a second round pick and more. Davante's deal, I don't know how it would work this year to add that to the cap. If you look at next year, yeah, there's no guarantee, but the cap number is a $44 million hit. I can't imagine Davante. Now, you could save some of that to be 15 dead money, 28 cap savings, but there's no way he's coming. There's no way he gets traded without reworking a deal, I would think, unless he just really wants out. I also think the Jets and A-Rod completely calls the shots up there are so overwhelmingly favorites to get this done that the rest of the conversation is pretty much content machine driven. How many articles are out there? 6 reasons why Davante Adams is coming to your team, to X team, and it's the Bills, the Jags, the
Right.
Saskatchewan Roughriders. To me, this is all about him getting to New York to play with Rodgers. And I will plant the flag. We did it with Ayuk, who was younger and probably would have cost less in a deal. I don't know if it would have cost less in a deal because he was younger. Ayuk, I think, had more stuff going on, and I got to a point halfway through the summer that I was just out on that. But the Adams thing, this is a long-term rebuild. And if you're going to build long-term, I want Adam Peters just found Johnny Newton, who all of a sudden looks like a real piece. You saw some Newton Mathis middle sets there. Coleman looks like a real player coming out of the third round. Adam Peters knew to trade away Jahan Dotson, and at this point, the third rounder looks pretty darn good. His draft record speaks for itself. I want him and this team to be not just chasing something this year, but building something where they're chasing titles for years. And I'm not against if Davante is a free agent this offseason and you could do a 2-year, lot of cash, but no long-term. I'm not against getting a stud star receiver in here to really ratchet up this offense. But I'm against giving up picks in what Peters has said repeatedly is a long-term plan to build a title contender. And I just don't think Davante Adams makes much sense.
Right. That's kind of, I look at him a lot like I look at the Ayuk situation. He's a better player than Ayuk. He's a better receiver than Ayuk. He's put up bigger numbers.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean?
My thing about it is that this thing exciting through 4 weeks. And as we talk about on the post-game pods, this is so much fun to watch. And part of it is the expectations were where they were, and now we're watching the football play out as it is. But let's be honest, the defense isn't going to give up 14 points a game moving forward. There's this offense probably won't operate at this efficiency at this level for another whatever it is, 13 games this season.
It might
And
not be historic. Like it'll come back to earth a little bit.
it's still going to be really good. I
I think
agree.
that's a really good offense, though. I think it's a top five NFL offense.
Right, but if it's not operating as efficient as it has the past 2 weeks, and if you want to say 3 weeks, they probably lose two of those three football games, or they certainly lose the Bengals game. Maybe they lose the Giants game if they aren't as efficient between the 20s as they were. The point being that, like,
Its kicker
as
doesn't
much
get
fun as
hurt.
this, yeah, as much fun as it is, this team is still not built ready to win real football games. And always when I say real football games, I'm talking about, January, February football games. And I like Davante Adams as a player. I just don't want to give up draft capital for him. And I keep going back to this. I discussed it with Terry. I think paying Davante is, I'm not saying that's prohibitive to pay two-star receivers, but to give up draft capital and have to pay them big money, and then also have to pay Terry. Terry's not going to command the same amount of money that Davante Adams does. But if Davante gets 35 a year over 2 years from them, in a more guaranteed set, Terry's not going to be very happy making only, 25. And are you at a point that I just think it creates an issue where there isn't one, and you have time to keep building this thing the correct way. And if there's a way to get Davante and you're giving up a fifth to get Davante in a third, or you could get Davante in a fifth to give up a third. Maybe you do something like that because you have an extra one. I don't want to give up real high draft capital for him.
You know what's nice about that third too is that is the Eagles pick that they had from the Dolphins, and the
Yeah,
way things are currently going for the Dolphins, that looks like I mean, there's so much football left before you really start projecting draft position. But a third round pick, the beauty of it, it's a top 100, but there's a chance that's a top 70. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
and those things are heavily weighted the higher up you can get.
I believe the Eagles have three third-round picks, and the Commanders get the best of the three. They have the Dolphins, the Colts, and their own.
Okay,
And
I thought it
and
was
they
tied to the Dolphins pick, but I could maybe it's currently the Dolphins because that's the
yeah, it
highest
might
one.
currently because it's the best one. But I think that was the difference of the deal because the seventh round situation was they get the worst of the seventh rounders or whatever. So if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, it's Mr. Irrelevant. But who
Well,
cares?
yeah, Peters was on a team that found Purdy at Mr. Relevant.
Right.
I think so. We're both out on Davante. Not only am I out on Davante, I don't plan on spending a whole lot of time on it because I think it's kind of Jets or bust.
It's funny. You keep saying Jets are bust, and I agree the Jets have to be the league leader for him. What if he ends up in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes?
I just don't. I mean, that rivalry, like here in DC and our listeners or
Yeah.
people, like I mean that I get that more intra division trades happen now, but I don't know. I don't see Mark Davis sending him to the Chiefs for the Chiefs to hoist another Lombardi. I could be wrong on that. I get that Rasheed Rice went down. Like I understand all that. I don't see it.
I guess where I'm at with it, and again, I think the Jets are the landing
What if
spot.
he goes back to the
But
Packers? Didn't Christian Watson just get hurt?
yeah, but that's a short term injury. I don't think it's long term.
I'm also kidding. I don't
But
think he's going to.
listen, the Chiefs, Devontae might go to the Chiefs without needing a restructured contract, and the Chiefs might be willing to give up a second rounder to get him, like we saw with Jahan Dotson. Like if they're the only team that are willing to go up a second, the Raiders recognize that they're not winning this year and want the best draft pick they can get. I think
Two things that I think are different there. One, I think there were other people willing on Jahan. They just took the best offer. I also don't think Washington was scared in what they were losing after the
right,
camp
right,
we saw. I mean, hell, Davante went for 110, I think, 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
Yeah, right against the Ravens, he went for 110 and a touchdown. Um, I think Davante can still play at a high level. That's pretty well documented.
oh yeah,
And I don't even, if I'm the Chiefs, dude, the way they've been winning, they've won back to back Super Bowls after they traded away Tyreek. And like, I think Andy will just be like, we'll figure something else out. And you know what I mean? I don't know. They kind of went ugly defensively. Mahomes is on path. I don't think he'll get there, but right now he's on a track to throw 20 picks, and they're
yeah.
4-0. Like,
Listen, the Pats went and got Randy Moss, and everyone thought that was a slam dunk. They're going to win three more Super Bowls with him, and couldn't get couldn't get over the finish line with him.
Undefeated until the Super Bowl when they
You
traded
know,
for
like that
Randy Moss.
comparison.
I, I don't know. And that was also an off-season deal. I think it's a little different when you make a trade in the off-season versus week 4 or 5, or maybe it gets done closer to the deadline.
Yeah,
For all the people that are excited about it, we don't mean to rain on your parade, but I don't see it. I don't see the need. I don't ever want to say I don't see the fit because he's a star player and he can fit anywhere. I mean, he just went for 110 with Gardner Minshew on a bad Raiders offense, so he can help any team. I don't see it. I did see something that I think might speak to a surprise and a positive surprise in that Washington just had two players plucked off their practice squad on the same day. I don't know the last time that's happened where two guys on the same day went. And perhaps they're building a little depth. Like you saw when they made roster cuts, KJ Henry, I think, just got added to the Cowboys active. Now, granted that a lot of this is injury driven, but it's been injury driven around the whole league forever. And still not a lot of commanders were getting called. I think it says something about what they're building, what they're doing.
Simi Cobbs, Simi Cobbs, Simi Cobbs.
Oh,
I listen. I listen when your team is winning and gelling up all the charts along the way and all the discussions about offensive efficiency and whatnot. People are going to start looking, but it's cool. I don't think it really means a whole lot.
all right. Well, this may or may not mean something because they'd have to create roster spots. But Jordan McGee and Marcus Mariota now eligible to come off PUP or IR rather. I don't. I watched McGee warm up, and I only really noticed because Dan Quinn went over there to watch. And generally, in Ashburn, the injured guys are so far away from us, you can't really watch. But the ASU bubble was like the size of like a nice high school gym. Like you can kind of see everything. It wasn't that big. And DQ went over and watched him and Obata. What looked like they were getting pushed pretty hard, and DQ walked away like really, kind of like head coach clapping. He seemed, and the way DQ is, he might just be happy with the work going in, but I don't think they make a move at the quarterback position. I'd really be in no hurry. The linebacker position, I think, is a little more interesting. And again, we don't know the injury situation. I know you're kind of wired in on that McGee thing. I'm curious if you think anything could happen there. If it does, we'd probably know tomorrow. You do have Ballore taking up a roster spot, who was a special teamer that was brought in. Was he brought in after week 1 or maybe prior? I think he was brought in the regular
I
season.
think it was after week 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan
you got
McGee.
Michael Walker on the active. Like, if you wanted to make a move there for a guy you took a 5th rounder on that looked pretty good in camp before the little meniscus thing, that one to me, I don't see the need for Mariota. He's still one thing that I think helps a lot is these practice squad guys are all traveling. Think back to the years pre-COVID. If they did this week in Arizona, I believe the old rules were the practice squad guys would have just stayed in Ashburn because nobody was getting elevated night of, all that stuff. The Mariota stuff, they've got Driscoll, Hartman's there. You know what I mean? Like they got options should they need an emergency, and I just might not mess with the roster. The McGee thing I think is a little different. You got perhaps replacement level guys in Ballore and Walker that you can make that move. I'm not predicting it. I don't know, but I would think McGee would be on a faster track if that knee is good to go.
Yeah, I mean when he got
Send
hurt,
some text, big man. Send some text.
When he got hurt, there was a lot of relief that it was a repair and not a replacement for the meniscus injury. And the expectation was that he wasn't going to need a full 4 weeks to be ready to come back. I believe there's a lot of confidence that when they make the move, when they open up the 3-week window, it's not going to be a 3-week window. It's going to be sign him back to the or bring him back to the regular roster. It'll be interesting if it happens this week. I think the fact that we didn't hear about it today with Tuesday with a couple of extra roster moves, even though those were practice squad roster moves and stuff. I think that's when we would have heard if they were going to do it. But I would expect that, by Baltimore, he's going to be back ready to go. And I'm excited. I was excited about him in camp. I'm still excited about him. Luvu and Bobby Wagner have been playing better and better each week and having a bigger impact each week. So the rush to bring him back, I think, is a little bit less. However, he's a rookie kid that you were excited about. You want to see him start hitting the field and playing real football. So I think that might be a Baltimore week, but it's coming soon.
That all adds up. I mean, it's more just like an interesting window is open. Now the other part specific to the IR is you only get a certain number of guys you can take back from the IR. That number's pretty high now though, and they haven't really, as of now, it doesn't look like they're gonna touch it.
Right.
But who knows? I think, if you look at snaps for Valor, he got 65% of the special team snaps. Walker got 57% of the special team snaps. Walker got six snaps on defense. Valor got zero. I just wonder if they're thrilled with how Valor's playing, cool, but I can't help but remember those two penalties in the Giants game.
Yeah.
And now he has ties to Izzo and blah, 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 but you're right. Maybe there's probably no urgency to that, but McGee was a guy that was always playing specials for you. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not like he was some elevated spot. And again, no hurry, but I found it curious.
Yeah. But
I
I agree with you about Mariota real quick that, I ideally that second quarterback doesn't play at all this year, and there's no rush to bring him back and upset the apple cart or change any of the dynamics of the game day rotations and stuff. But I think that they should be happy with where they're at right now.
because I don't think it impacts at this stage. It's not like the backup quarterback's getting snaps at practice or anything.
Right.
Like I just think the biggest impact he's having is in his leadership and watching film and everything else, and he's doing all that.
Right. He's still
And
doing all that. Yeah.
right, like just vibe is the wrong word, but like obviously his rookie year didn't get off to the start Jaden's has, but like everything Jaden has gone through, at least through the third week of the season, Marcus had walked in those shoes and could talk about it from real experience. And I just think, you know what I mean? Like, hey, man, that is what did it end up being? His chest, his groin, it kind of moved.
Yes, I think.
Right, right. So I have one last thing. I don't know what you have, but we've kind of gone through my notes with some efficiency. And I'm cool if this is a relatively quick pod, just kind of collect our thoughts before we get going
Yeah.
into the real work week, and we'll be back Thursday night. But I will defer to you should you have anything.
Oh, at this moment, no. The Davante stuff and that I didn't have anything else really outside of that.
EQ talked yesterday. One thing I do think Wiley has played a lot better. I can't. A couple guys that I want to give credit to. I don't know that we gave a game ball. Were you worried we didn't give one to Terry? Certainly Terry deserved one. I think you could argue OZ deserved one.
I think we got OZ and we got Terry, but we didn't get the O line at all.
And they deserve that.
Yeah.
Dorrance Armstrong starting to play. It really came on in that game, and I thought that was huge. I think Chin is what they keep talking about, playing violent. Like I think you're seeing that starting to just come downhill on stuff. I don't know. I'll say this, and the hashtag is no fade in Jaden. There is a mindset betting in the NFL, and you and I do it regularly, where a team that has looked really bad the week before and a team that has looked really good the week before, if those two are set to face off on one another, like flip it upside down, and that can kind of be, at least from a betting perspective, your plan of attack. But I'm out on that with Jaden. Like he's throwing everything upside down right now. And if you want to say that line looks kind of funny with the Browns, like Okay, it does. I mean, remember when we were guessing? I think you had it. Your guess was like 5.5 or something, and it was just home
Yeah.
field. Maybe it's 3.5 now. Um, and who's going to block Miles Garrett? And that Browns defense last year was at least pretty scary. But I don't know. I'm getting dangerously close to like not stressing what my preconceived look to Vegas for some guideline notions are.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's certain times and certain places. It happened with CJ Stroud a lot last year, where, like you said, we like to bet against teams that are playing above their heads when it seems like they're just playing above their heads. But this thing doesn't feel like it's a one-off. Like this feels like a repeatable offense, and you know maybe they're not going to go 3 games and punt one time in those 3 games again, but it is an offense that can continue to move the ball. They're running the ball well. They're passing. It's one of those things where I will find out on Thursday when we get to 100 chips, but I find it hard to believe that I'm not going to be putting my chips on Jaden and the Commanders in this one because it just feels like two franchises that are going in the opposite direction. And even when the Browns have a glimmer of hope, they seem to immediately immediately go the other direction. I'm just staying on the bottom line right now. Browns defensive tackle Mike Hall Jr. is suspended for 5 games for an altercation from something over the summer or whatever. Just doesn't seem like things are going particularly well in Browns land, and obviously the opposite here.
I have a secret for you, Mitch, and this is an incredible feeling to say. The Browns have bad ownership. Like there's a
Yeah.
reason that thing that's a
Oh,
canoe that just what do you call it? Catapult?
yeah.
Capitulate? What do you call it?
Capsized.
Capsize.
Capsized.
It's a it's a canoe that capsizes every couple seasons. And Haslam's gonna fire somebody and he's gonna listen to a homeless dude and draft Johnny Manziel. Like whatever's gonna happen, Washington now has a boat that stays upright. Even
Yeah.
there's gonna be some rapids, but they're gonna stay upright. And capable, able ownership, we know it well, matters in this league.
I had one thing for you. In the middle of the game on Sunday, one of my friends who you know well showed me a bet from September 4th that he put in 10,000 to 1 odds that the Washington Commanders would lead the NFL in points scored this year.
Wow.
And he never told me that he was taking the bet. He just had listened to the podcast and he had listened to us talk about how excited we were about Jaden and all the things that were happening. And he basically said I had some real CJ Stroud vibes and decided to throw something in there. So uh shout out to my buddy for that.
Ask me who that is.
Yeah. I'll just say womp womp and you'll know exactly who it is.
Wow. Good for him.
Yeah. So I
Good
mean,
for him.
who knows where this thing ends up, but an Eagles fan is out there betting on the Commanders to lead the NFL in points. World are we living in?
I love it. All right. So yards total right now is the Ravens. The Commanders are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in yards. Points total, the Commanders are third. And if you think about the yardage total, some of that and points total, frankly, some of that's going to be muted from the first 2 games.
Right.
That's fascinating, dude. All right.
Yeah.
Good for old Womp Womp. Damn, I just thought of something else. Oh, dude, the only other thing before I get to my final thought,
Hmm.
for the like, you got to change the name no matter what crowd. I've been seeing a lot of Jaden Daniels Commanders T-shirts. Like a lot. The success of Jaden, and if this team, dude, just back the math out. They're 3-1, 13 games left. 6-7 gets you to 9, probably gets you in. Yeah, let's say this team goes 8-6 down the stretch. I mean, maybe that's also too many games. 8-5. Who like you don't want to get ahead of yourself, but if they have a star quarterback, kids get into it. Kids are wearing Commanders gear to school. You know what my daughter asked me? You know what my little one Ainsley asked me the other day? Daddy, I like Jaden Daniels. I said, awesome. She said, is he a saint? And I said, no. And she said, is he a nun? And I said, no. Now you can tell my kids go to Catholic school, but she's just kind of into what's cool and knows that this is kind of what we do for work. But like my 5-year-old, is into Jaden Daniels. When Shelby was 4 years ago, what were we talking about? Haskins? Like out in the
Maybe,
return of
yeah.
Alex Heineke? Jaden's something else. And that, I think, I recognize that the current owners remember the Redskins and the old team and how iconic that was. But if this thing really just gains momentum, and maybe you can just introduce like what Tutty is, but you throw like a hog on a helmet for your alternate logo or something, and people can just call them the Hogs a little more freely. Like maybe you could invent a nickname somewhere naturally here and embrace it. Because to me, the biggest problem with the name, besides Dan relation, is that there's no nickname. But the name Washington Commanders is growing. Um,
I
a lot of
believe
football left. A lot of football left. But like that's a thing that is happening.
I believe Jaden Daniels jersey was the number one selling jersey in the
Michael
past
Rubin was
week.
tweeting about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's wild. I had I hung out yesterday afternoon with one of my friends, and we went over to a card shop with his kid, and I picked up this Jaden Daniels rookie card. His first, I think it's his first 2024 NFL rookie card, even though he's still in the LSU jersey. Paid a couple bucks for it. Probably not worth the cardboard it's printed on, but it's been pretty damn fun watching it. And if there's anyone who I would ever start collecting cards again for, it would be for a guy like him.
100% a baseball card guy as a kid, I'm guessing.
Oh, I have stacks.
Beckett's? Did you get Beckett?
Oh, absolutely. I got Beckett's. I was all in the full on, what is it, junk wax era. All of my cards that were once worth lots of money are now worth absolutely nothing.
Pete Haley has a big birthday approaching. I'm bad at dates. I know it's soon, so we're getting out in front of it. I know what's amazing is that I wished you a happy birthday a couple days before your birthday, knew it was coming, played golf with you on the day of your birthday, and did not mention your birthday once. So I'm when I know something's coming, I'm getting ahead of it. All right. Happy
Listen,
birthday, Mitch.
Thursday. Thursday is Pete's birthday, I believe.
All right, let's try to remember.
Yeah. I like need to set a reminder or something like that. But yes, that's a good point. Pete's moving
All
on
right.
Saturday into DC, and we're talking about trying to find a night to get some famous Haley espresso martinis in the new
I'm in
abode.
that. Let's play some golf. Last but not least, all right. We have a devoted, loyal podcast listener in Arizona. And I'm going to ask you simply, Mitch, where is the stadium in Arizona?
Glendale, Arizona.
Okay. Now, my buddy John calls Glendale the city of champions. And I said, why on earth? He said, we've hosted every major championship because they've had, they Super Bowl, Final Fours, WrestleMania. They've hosted it, right? Do you know what I'm not going to say we, even though you didn't correct me, but do you know what I opened the stream with from the 42-14 ass kicking in Arizona?
I don't remember. No. What did you say?
Live from Glenmont, Arizona. And
Listen,
my
you just
boy,
got confused with the metro station. It happens to the best of us. You grew
my
up in
boy
DC.
texted me. He's like, listen, this ain't some end of the road red line stop. This is freaking Glendale, baby. So my bad. Left hand up on that.
Glendale's so good that they're able to hang on to the Arizona hockey team, which decided it would rather play at a college arena than continue playing at, I believe it was called like the Gila Monster Center or the Gila Center or something along those lines in Glendale. So Glendale ain't all that.
I don't think that was really Glendale's fault, but I hear you. I also think the hockey team will do very well in Utah. Shout out to Utah. All right, I think we've covered it all. We've covered Glenmont to Glendale,
We have.
red line to red dirt. All right, we're back Thursday. Watch us on TV. Watch the stream. Listen to the pod. We love you and we miss you. And if you made it this far, wish Pete a happy birthday on Thursday.
And we owe you a salty golfer beer out of Myrtle
Oh,
Beach.
and we think hypothetically October 14th at MGM. Goodbye.
Yes.